Welcome to the Naked Podcaster. Get ready to hear stories of someone brave enough to bear it all. Let's get naked.
Because your website is caregiverdave.com. So let's jump in there.
All right.
Tell me all about it. I mean, it's an amazing website. It's huge.
It is. It was just rebuilt recently by my nephew because he's this guru of websites, and I thought I had a pretty good website. I was proud of it. I helped build it, But he said, no, that website sucks. You need the goods. And I just thought he was trying to sell me a website, but he wasn't. He was really trying to help me. And I am so glad that I did it. And he gave me a great price. And so caregiverdave.com is a membership website. And what does that mean? That means that I have learned a long time ago, because I'm a coach and I've been giving free coaching and counseling since I was a teenager to my loser teenage friends who were trying to get a girl. And I would say, no, you got to do it this way. And if they would follow my advice, they would get the girl. And if they didn't, they wouldn't. And unfortunately, I found over the years that about 95% of people who ask me my advice don't really want my advice because they don't take it. They just want my approval because they've already made up their minds. And now they're taking a poll. And if I don't agree with them, then they get upset with me. Now, maybe you've had that experience as well.
I think with kids, that often happens. They're like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, this is what I think. They're like, yeah, you're dumb. So
I started charging for my coaching, and an amazing thing happened. People started showing up for the calls and not standing me up, and started doing the homework and started following my advice, and we're actually getting the results that they wanted. And I thought, why? Well, because they have skin in the game now.
mm-hmm.
Okay, it's like having a doctor appointment at 7 o'clock in the morning. You have to get up at 7 for an 8 o'clock appointment. And you get to bed late last night, maybe 2 a.m. and you couldn't sleep and you're tossing and turning. And that alarm clock rings at 7. You say, there is no way I'm getting out of this bed. But then you remember that a doctor is going to charge you $85 whether you show up or not. You get out of bed. And that's how it is. So same with the website. It was an amazing website. And, not enough people, I thought, were taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, let me come up with a number, because people will put a value on things of what it costs them. And if it costs them nothing, like free advice, right? That didn't cost them anything. That's what it's worth. It's worth zero. So I came up with a number, $97. Okay. I think every caregiver can afford $97. Now, they probably won't spend it on themselves, but they'll gladly spend it on someone else, because that's what they'll give you the shirt off their back. They'll give and give and give and give till there's nothing left to give, and then they burn out. So, but this isn't $97 a month or a year. It's $97 for the rest of your life. So who can't afford that? One visit to the ER will cost you more than that. And 30% of caregivers will die. Okay, so that's even worse than the ER. Many more will become hospitalized and become sicker than the ones they care for. These are statistics from AARP and eldercare.com. And now we're in the coronavirus pandemic, and any caregiver who's burned out has a compromised immune system and are at higher risk to coronavirus. So the website is a membership website for $97 for the rest of your life. You get access to all of my content for the last 7 years. This is blogs, thousands of articles, videos, you name it, it's there. Plus, I give 3 free coaching sessions to every new member, and that's worth a lot of money. That's actually priceless. So 3 30-minute coaching sessions they will get. And then they get a copy of my first book and my second book online. And the value is just tremendous. Plus, you become a member of the 37,000, Facebook community. And when you have a problem, you go to the Facebook community and you say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. My autistic son just ended up in jail, and, I'm feeling guilty. It's my fault, and this, and that. And then you'll find other parents of autistic children, for example, who will say, no, don't feel guilty. This happened to me too. It's a place to make you feel normal, that you're not the only one going through this. You're not the only one feeling guilty, and that it's called a support group. And anyone who's going through something should go through a support group, because I couldn't get through mine. Now, I'll tell you a brief history of mine, unless you want more about the website.
Well, we're going to jump into,
Okay. I'll
yeah,
let you guide
let's,
this.
yeah. Let's, the website is phenomenal and I'm not a member, so I can't even, that's incredible that you give 3 coaching sessions, 2 books. So people who are in the caregiving realm, I had no idea 30% would die before the person they were taking care of. That
Yeah.
statistic, when I read it on your website, I was astounded by that. So clearly you're doing everything for everyone else and not enough for yourself. Let's talk about your books and your radio show.
Yeah. It started out with the book. I think that's the first thing that I did. I wrote a book about my life because that's the easiest thing to write about. So it's
Mhm.
called One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships. It's a story about my wife and I. And, we had a fairy tale storybook romance. One day, after raising 3 daughters and getting them all out of the house and even getting them all married off, each one twice, we decided to just start traveling and stuff and just have the freedom and possess it. And one day my wife complains about this headache she had, 3-day headache going on the 4th day. And it was the headache of her life. She wanted me to call Dr. Kevorkian to put her out of her misery. And that's how bad it was. But instead, it got worse and the ambulance came and it was too late. My wife had suffered a massive stroke that left her severely speech impaired, paralyzed on one side. And in that moment, our world turned upside down and everything had changed and we almost broke up. And in that moment of just feeling isolated and lonely and depressed and all these feelings, I wrote her a letter. I said, "Dear Charlene, why are you so mean to me? It's so hard being your husband, taking care of you 24/7, not feeling any crumbs of appreciation or love in return. I know it's hard on you, but you're making it even harder on me. I just don't think I can be with you anymore. I mean, I'll take care of you financially, but I just can't be with you." you know, and I looked at that letter and I read it over and over again. And I said, how can I give this to the mother of my children, my soulmate, the woman I loved and married 23 years ago? I couldn't. So I just filed it away, went on in my loneliness until I found a support group because I found a business card in my pocket. Somebody had given it to me, maybe when I was living in the hospital with her for 6 weeks. I don't remember. I didn't even know what a caregiver was. I didn't know what a support group was. But I figured, well, somebody thinks I need this, so I'll go. What have I got to lose? And I went, and everything changed for me. Learned if I didn't take care of me, I couldn't take care of Charlene. And I was reminded, the airlines tell us every single time I tune them out on the plane, when an emergency happens, mask will drop. Put your mask on first before you help your loved one with their mask, and so on. So I started just being selfish. You know, it didn't feel good being selfish. I felt guilty about it, but I kept saying, well, they told me to do it and they're the professionals, so I'm just going to trust them. And I got through it. I stopped feeling selfish, stopped feeling guilty. And she slowly started coming around and becoming her old self again. Our love was rekindled. And now we travel the world speaking to caregivers and groups. And I've been on 34 TV shows. I've spoken at Harvard and Carnegie Hall, sharing stage with Suzanne Summers, Martha Stewart, Ice-T, just doing all sorts of stuff on my 4th book, helping caregivers to stay alive. And the title of my thing that I usually do is How to Prevent Your Loved One's Illness or Disease from Killing You. And so the website came, the radio show came. I've been doing the radio show for 7 years. Now I've got 3 radio shows I'm doing. One is 21 platforms on a podcast. Another one is syndicated in 150, all 50 states, 135 countries. And then the other one I do is I interview with my co-host, Neil Haley, celebrity caregivers, because every celebrity has a story, and people seem to be more interested in celebrity stories because they're more interested in celebrities, you know. And so I'm going to write my 5th book. I've got so many books about just transcribing those celebrity interviews, and I'll call it something like celebrity interviews or whatever. I got to come up with a cute title.
Very, very. Yeah, that's a good starting place. Yeah. Holy cow! So I mean, your story is so intertwined and it's so obvious the connection between what you're doing and your struggle. So I think we're going to kind of weave in and out of that through this
Yeah.
whole thing. The first thing that comes to my mind is, how are you doing all this? You're still your wife's caregiver, okay? Because you're the one telling me I need to take care of myself first and be selfish. But you're on your fourth book. You have 3 different podcast radio shows. You're traveling the world speaking. Like, where's your selfish time? Or has this become that? What are you doing?
Well,
How are you
that's a good
doing?
question. You know, it's not easy being Dave the caregiver, Caregiver Dave. But and you forgot that I'm also an entrepreneur. I own a gas station. I've owned it for 40
Okay.
years.
I,
And
I,
so, you know, we're an essential service now. So we're running this gas station now. We're wearing the mask. We have the sneeze guards at the counters. We close down the restroom because it's just, you know, sick people are coming in and they're stealing all our toilet paper. And I mean, just dealing with all of that. Gas prices are dropping like a rock. Um, and you know, I had to lay off some people, cut back the hours, close Monday through Thursday because we're open 24 hours normally. Dealing with all of that. And so you ask, well, where's my me time? Well, believe it or not, I am doing great. I'm not burned out. And maybe it's my temperament because I'm just a basically the temperament kind of guy. You know, I'm very equally balanced. You know, I'm a little money motivated, little cause motivated, little fun motivated, just a tiny bit, maybe not much organization, anal motivated, you know. So those people are boring anyway. I'm sorry. The accountants and the engineers, you know, and the CPAs. So thankfully, I don't have a lot of that in me. But I have a good temperament to be a caregiver, which is unusual because most caregivers are women. So maybe I'm in touch with my feminine side. I don't know. But I ride my bike every morning.
Okay.
First of all, I'm very blessed because my wife is very, very independent. She was very independent before, and she's still independent. I mean, she was a gourmet cook, still is, interior decorator, still is, a hairdresser. She does her own hair. She is was a wedding coordinator for her church. I mean, she's so artsy, craftsy. She's like a Martha Stewart and Wonder Woman all rolled into one. And she a type A personality. She has a stroke, and she's just devastated. 2-year grieving period, you know, depression, anger, taking it out on me, the only guy who's around to receive it. We lived in a beautiful house in Burbank, and 2-story. We had to move from that, and that was really ugly because that was her baby. That was her dream house where she was going to just bury me in the backyard, you know. And so kicking and screaming, we moved closer to my gas station, which was 30 miles away.
Uh-huh.
Commuted for 19 years, and I couldn't handle both. You know, either the
Yeah.
station was suffering or she was suffering. I says, we got to move. And I just did it, you know, ultimatum. I says, I'm moving, you can come or you can get your apartment. And she decided to come, and she sulked for a couple of years. But then she came around and she started decorating the house because it was all white, no window dressing. And it was, she got better and better and better. And now we have the new normal. We are more in love now than we ever have been. And I'm as healthy as a caregiver as I ever have been. I ride my bike. I go to LA Fitness. Well, not anymore because they closed down, but I have a
Not
swimming
not as
pool.
we're taping this. No.
I have to, you know, heat the pool now. And it costs a little money. So I do it on certain days that the family can all come over and go swimming. We just did it yesterday. We're going to do it again Sunday if the sun stays out. We're not used to so much rain here in LA, but I guess we need it because they're always telling us we're in a drought. But that's basically the story. I do take care of myself. I have my personal time. She is very independent. She can cook, she can clean, she can do the laundry. I come home, dinner's on the table. I mean, she does it all with one arm and one leg tied behind her back and duct tape basically over her mouth because she still can't talk, but she can communicate through Pictionary and charades, 2 games that I happen to hate, by the way, but I'm learning to love. And she still can't walk, but she has this power chair, and she goes faster than I am. I mean, she's more capable. You know, I've got arthritis in my feet, and it hurts, and I complain, and she gives me this look like, yeah, try walking a mile in my moccasins, buddy. You know, so she's a tough cookie. And so it's I won't say it's easy for me to find time for myself, but she has time for herself. She likes to work on her iPad because it's good therapeutically anyway. She likes to watch Netflix. And so that takes up a lot of her time. And so I'm at the station and I'm only 2 miles away. And she can bathe herself. She can go to the bathroom. Just needs tiny little help with getting her in the shower and out. She can do it herself, but I just want to be there to make sure she doesn't fall or anything. And on these short trips, I'll go, like maybe to Tampa for a couple of days or Nashville or, do the TV shows. Now I don't have to. I can do them all on Skype, which is kind of cool. I don't have to travel the country. And so she can stay by herself for a couple of days. Her daughter lives just down the block, basically, and we have a good neighbor, and they help out by keeping an eye on her. So I am blessed, and I am not neglecting my needs. I take care of myself very, very well. And so that's why I'm Dave the Caregiver. I'm trying to say, do what I do. I learned the hard way because for 2 years I didn't. And I was
Right.
a mess. And I had to steal away in the night for the weekend to go to visit relatives in Nashville and Miami and New York, cousins I haven't seen in decades. And, she was upset that I left, but I had to leave. It was either that or burn out. And I would come back rejuvenated, recharge batteries, and I did it again. And
Yeah.
that was my how I survived the grief process.
There's so much that I want to talk to you about at this point. But I love the fact that you figured out what works for you, and you've had time, like you've said, to
Yeah.
figure this out. But you decided if riding your bike is what you want to do and keeping that gas station going and moving closer. I mean, you had to make some really tough decisions on what
Yeah.
you needed in order to work well in the situation. And not all of them were fun decisions.
No.
Right. I want to go back
She
to
lost her car too. She couldn't drive.
I
She
mean,
lost the relationship with her 1-year-old granddaughter, and that was devastating there. She lost so much. And
yeah.
we'll talk about grief later on and how when you have a loss, you go through a grief process.
I want to go back to when the headache happened and the stroke happened and you guys had lived this fairy tale life, which in and of itself is something that I know a lot of people will be envious of. And because that's a tough feat in and of itself, and thank God
Yeah.
for that. So she had the stroke, and it had to have been such a massive shock that that's what was going on. Was there any medical reason from a medical standpoint?
No.
Okay.
No, they checked everything. They ended up saying, we don't know what happened. She
Okay.
wore a heart monitor for 24 hours to see if it would happen again. And somehow they figure that a blood clot came out of her heart, and just a freak thing. Now, she was going through a transition from hormones, menopause. She was on estrogen and Provera, and they just switched her over to Prempro, which is a combination of the two. And that's the only thing that I can kind of link. In those days, they said nothing about hormones causing blood clots. It was only birth control, which wasn't on birth control.
Right.
But now today they say, oh, yeah, hormones will cause blood clots. So that's probably the culprit.
Okay. And I knew I have a good friend, and his wife had a stroke. She had to have been about 40, and
Yeah,
it
she
was the
was
birth
52.
control. Yeah. It's so young, and it was birth control. So I was kind of wondering about that.
Yeah.
And it
And
doesn't matter.
we tried to sue, but, within the 1 year. But the doctors, they cover their butts with their
Oh,
little
yeah.
reports, and no one's going to testify against another one. So
Yep.
we just decided to play the cards we're dealt and not cry over spilled milk. We're people of faith, and so we believe if something happens, it happens for a reason, and we're just going to move on.
Let's discuss that couple years, because regardless of if there was a reason, even if there was, it doesn't stop what has happened at this point.
Yeah, blaming somebody doesn't help, I think.
No, but it's nice to at least try to understand it. I think, and for me, and I asked that question because, okay, if this happened, I want to understand why. At least that gives you some peace
Right.
of mind. And also you can avoid it happening again or becoming
Like
worse.
the coronavirus, everybody wants to blame somebody, and a lot of people are blaming Trump. A lot of people are blaming China, but is that productive? Maybe
No.
for next time.
Right. No, not really. But, I think my biggest concern was that could she have another stroke? Is there a reason that it
Well, yeah,
happened?
they say that there's a 50% chance once anybody has a stroke of having another stroke. Now it's been 23 years. She hasn't had another stroke. And
Right.
she had one seizure. She's never had another seizure. So I don't know. We're lucky, we're
Okay.
blessed, whatever.
So tell me about that first couple years right after. It's been 23 years since she had the stroke, since this happened.
23
Holy
years.
cow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was
23
thinking
and a half years. So, as
there.
time is ticking away.
I'm a runner. You always put the point whatever in a half is a half. You claim it. So tell me about that first couple years, because did you ever show her the letter, and did she ever write one of her own?
No, because she can't write, first of
Well,
all.
right, but in her
And
own way, did she ever express it how she
no,
felt?
she had many, many temper outbursts, temper tantrums, whatever you want to call them. They were ugly, because she was so frustrated. She can't do what we're doing, what separates us from the animals, communicate our deep innermost feelings. And uh, when I would win all the arguments, no, we have to move. She would just go crazy. And I would just have to leave her in her room screaming at the top like a 2-year-old, just banging their head against the wall. She wasn't banging her head against the wall, but just screaming shrill screams, that you can. I'm sure the neighbors thought I was torturing her or beating her up or something. But and that was really hard for me. But because of the support groups, and I says, you know what? She's grieving and she's angry, and it doesn't involve you. Don't take it personally. Uh, you probably wouldn't handle it as well as she is if you had lost your speech. And she couldn't articulate her case with these arguments, with these discussions about no, you can't drive anymore. No, we have to move. No, your mother has to move in with us because I need the help. All the things that she felt so passionately about. No,
Right.
she didn't know. She knew a few words, and no was one of them. It's like a 2-year-old knows no, right? So it gets tiring just hearing the same words over and over again, because all she says is no, basically. She says she knows yes and no. I hear no more than yes, of course. She knows my name. And, she knows like Ralph's, that means let's go shopping, stuff like that. But it was really hard for her. And then she would get these terrible, terrible leg cramps. They were just so bad. They were like labor pain. How labor will come upon you, like every 5 minutes or so. This is how the cramps were. And it would be torturous. It was like a demon coming to visit her at the night, usually when she's sleeping. And I felt so bad for her because she would just end up crying all night long because of the pain. So she went through hell, and there was nothing I can do about it. Nothing the doctors could do about it. You give her muscle relaxers. They might help a little, but usually they don't, and this and that. And we had 3 adult children at the time, daughters, and they had families of their own, but they would come and help. The oldest daughter was good in the very, very beginning. She had a big whiteboard, and she, while I was still in the hospital with her, she was 6 weeks in the hospital, 6 weeks in rehab, and 6 weeks at home getting rehab. So after 6, 12, 18 weeks, the insurance says, okay, that's it. You're on your own. Basically, she's plateaued, and she's what she has is what she's going to keep. You can keep working on it, but she just decided at one point she had this orthotic foot to help her walk, but it was so hard, and she couldn't wear her pretty shoes, so she had to wear these ugly sneakers. So she decided, I'm just going to stay in my power chair because that's how I want to live the rest of my life. I don't want to struggle. It's like being in Las Vegas, and you put $1 down on the crap table, and if you're lucky enough to win, you get a penny back. The payout just wasn't worth it for her.
Yeah.
And the speech therapy was so hard, the physical therapy, the occupational therapy. She did as much as she could, and when she saw that it just wasn't giving her a return on her investment, she says, I'm just content with my arm and my leg not working, I'll stay in my power chair. I'm content just using Pictionary and charades. Fine for her, but I only get 80% of what she's saying. But then they say communication is 80% nonverbal, and the rest is, you know, tonality, expression, looks, touching, etc. And she's got that down to a pad. I've seen her talking to people at a restaurant while we're waiting for a table. And they're having a conversation and laughing and joking and slapping each other on the back for 20 minutes. And I look over there, what are they doing? And I go over, and he doesn't even know that she can't talk. She's communicating. And we went to the New York Publicity Summit, where we get guests for our show in New York, and every one of the producers, and even Good Morning America and the Today Show and The View and Kelly and Ryan, those producers would come over because she's like radiant. She dresses like the Queen of England in her wheelchair. And they just start a conversation with her, and she's, communicating with her. And then they'll come to me, and I said, well, she can't talk. She said, well, what do you mean? I was talking. And I said, no, you were communicating. So she's got the yes and the no and the tonality and the touching and the expressions and the sounds really down good.
That's incredible.
I know, she's incredible.
I know that statistically that makes sense, but to see it in action, that's really incredible. And that people don't realize it. That's kind of
it is
amusing.
Amazed.
So obviously I can't imagine what I would feel like in her situation, or how I would react, or how pissed I'd be. Yeah. I get it. I have no idea how I would respond in that situation, and being the caretaker of someone in that situation. So what were you not doing? When you went to the support group for the first time, it seems like it was an aha light bulb moment for you in time. And what did you realize from that?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that I was on a need to know basis. I'm glad nobody told me during those 2 years that in 2 more decades I would still be dealing with this, or I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done, because there's just things you don't need to know. Need to know basis. And when I found out about this support group, it was a combination support group, because this woman visited us in the hospital who had a stroke. She was a stroke survivor, and she came, and I saw she was kind of limping around, in her orthotic leg. And she says, hi, my name is Candace, and I wanted to invite you to a stroke support group. I'm thinking, oh my God. That was the first glimpse that I've had. Is this what I have to look forward to? Is this how she's going to be? God, of course, today I realize I would give anything if she was like that, because at least she could talk. Mm-hmm. She can't talk. But we went, and I enjoyed it a lot. And they send the caregiver, it was a support group for stroke survivors. Okay. So they send the stroke people in one room, mm-hmm. and they send the caregivers in the other room. And the two just complain about each other behind their backs. The caregivers are telling each other, what their loved one did, and can you believe she did this? And I don't believe, I was so mad, and so, well, that's nothing. You wait till you hear what mine is. So we were all venting, getting it off each other's chest, and it was so good. Yeah, it felt so good to be normal. And to say, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not going crazy. That someone else is feeling the same thing I'm feeling, and they're surviving. They're still here. So I don't have to kill myself. I'm not going to die. So many times I would cry myself to sleep. I didn't think I would wake up in the morning. I'd just be dead from the stress. But I woke up the next morning, made it through another day. Imagine that. The Bible says that he won't give you more than you can handle. So if you think you can't handle it, don't worry, you can. Yeah. And then the stroke survivors, they would go and they would complain about us, all the mean things we do to them, how he made us do this, and he made us, fix our own breakfast, because the occupational therapist says it's more therapeutic to make them, don't turn them into an invalid, My wife was a gourmet cook, and she wanted to cook. And so her mother was living with us at the time, and so she would try reaching for things on the top shelf, get out of her wheelchair, and her mother said, "Oh, no, honey, let me get that for you," And she wouldn't want her doing anything. And I would say, no, no, the occupational therapist says that she has to do this. And so I would say, come on, a little more, you're almost there. You know, I'm pushing her and I stand on your toes. And her mother thought I was cruel, but you know, if her mother had it her say, Charlene would be an invalid, bedridden today, not having any confidence that she can do anything for herself. But instead, I turned her into a very independent woman. And I'm reaping the benefits of that now because I have more freedom. The more independent she is, the more free I am, and the more good she feels about herself, that she's not a burden on me or society. Or, you know, a lot of loved ones feel so guilty that they're putting their loved one, their caregiver, through this. And a lot of them will commit suicide just to free their caregiver away, you know. And the doctor said, you know, don't leave the pills by her bed. And I said, why? He says, well, you know, women usually take their life with pills, and men usually use a gun. And I says, really? And so she was depressed for a while, and so he prescribed Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. And a lot of people are so opposed to antidepressants because they don't know what they are. They think they're recreational drugs. Well, I don't want to feel, you know, drugged up. I want to be alert. It says it doesn't make you drugged up. It just restores the chemical imbalance in your brain. And that's what was going on with Charlene. Obviously, she was depressed about losing all the stuff she lost. But in addition to that, you know, there's a difference between sadness and clinical depression. In addition to that, there was a chemical imbalance going on in the brain, which is very common for stroke. And so she needed something to just take the edge off of life. And now when she gets to the bottom of her pills, or a couple of days goes by, you know, maybe it's a weekend, we can't get some, you can just tell she's just a little more impatient, a little more bitchy, a little more edgy. And I said, well, we got to get these antidepressants in you.
Was she right or left-handed, and which side did she lose?
She is right-handed. She lost her right side, so she had to learn
Oh.
how to write with her left hand, which, you know, she does pretty good, but it's like a kindergarten writing. And she doesn't spell that well because the language part of her brain is damaged. So she has this thing called global aphasia, which means she knows what she wants to say. It's on the tip of her tongue, and her mind just can't remember how to move the mouth, the lips, the tongue to say and form the words. And her mind can't remind her how to spell the words. Now, she does a pretty good job. It's like playing a game. You know, she might write RALS, and she wants to say Ralph's, RALPHS. So you got to figure it out. And sometimes it's easy if it's something that she does over and over again. And sometimes it's pretty tough and frustrating for both of us. And if I don't get it after about 5 minutes, I'll just say, listen, you know, let's forget it. And sometimes she'll say, okay. And sometimes she'll be very angry because she wants whatever it is really badly. But I said, I can't do it. If you can't write it down, you can't say it. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do.
I can't imagine how pissed I'd be. Like just that thing where you're like, oh, you know that word, it's right there when you're trying to, and how frustrating that is. And like an hour later, you'll just shout it out because it came to you. I can't, I mean, I understand. And I understand your frustration and the need to set boundaries.
Boundaries. Yeah, I could talk a lot about that.
Well, I think a lot of, you know, you're in a relationship, but it's almost a parenting role in the fact that you are a caretaker. And so you have to set back. You can't sit there for an hour and a half trying to figure something out. Both of you getting more, just escalating.
It's when we have to be somewhere and we're late.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, I understand that. And I think boundaries are important for you and for the relationship. Tell me about how you, first of all, when you went to the support group, what did you realize that you really needed? Was it a break in time or away from her like you had been doing with those weekends, or was it something totally different?
Well, I didn't do the weekends until I learned from the support group that I had permission to do the weekends, because they say you need to take care of yourself, whatever is important to you. And with me, I just needed to get away. I needed to get away from her. I needed to separate us with space because, you know, you're there every single day just putting up with it. Dave, what is it now? You know? And so for me, because I was able to, and I had her mother living with us at the time, which was great. Her mother hated it. I mean, her mother loved it, of course, but her Charlene hated living with her mother
Okay.
because that's the mother-daughter thing,
Yep.
some kind of chemical reaction there. But I loved it. And after a couple of years, maybe 2.5 years, when we moved, she says, "That's the time. I want them out of this house. It's either them or me." And we had been better now because uh, we needed them and they served a purpose. But now it's time to transition, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a good time to find them. So I bought them a house up in Visalia, California, which is about 2 hours away. And you would think that they would want to leave happily, but they were offended and thought we didn't want them. And I says, I couldn't tell them that her mother wanted. I just said, it's a smaller house. There's not enough room for us. You need a house of your own. All the good things. They should have been
Yeah.
happy, but they're just negative, complaining people anyway, victim mentality people. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing you can do about them. And a lot of caregivers are like that. 30% of my caregivers in my 37,000 group, they're very negative. They're very closed-minded. They're very argumentative with me. I'll tell them, I'll have a thing on it. Caregiving can be fun, and fulfilling. And they just, no, it can't be. You didn't go through my day. There was crap all over the place. She messed her diaper, and they just go on and on and on, and they just can't see the right perspective. And you know what? That makes the statistic just come to life for me. I says, you know what? That person's going to die. And there's
Yeah.
about 30% of them, out of 100 people, 30 of them are going to die from the stress because they're just going to kill themselves. We can kill ourselves,
Yeah.
and we don't realize we're killing ourselves because they're not eating right, they're not sleeping right, they're negative all the time, and they get cancer, they get ulcers, a bleeding ulcer, whatever it is. They just internalize all the bad stuff, and it turns into disease.
That's so sad. But a negative attitude does a lot. And you weren't feeling that stressed when you
No,
found the
because I'm a
support.
positive person by
Right.
nature, and that was going in my favor. But I was depressed at times, and I
Mm-hmm.
was frustrated at times, and I was impatient at times, and I was acting uncharacteristically of me, which helped me to say, "Hey, this isn't me.
Yeah.
What's going on? I need help." And so that's one reason I went to the caregiver support group, and another reason why I says, boy, wouldn't it be nice? Because I think one of the things he says, what would you do if you had 3 wishes? And I said, oh, I wish I could just hop on a plane and go away and visit, my cousins I haven't seen in decades. They said, well, do it. I said, how can I do it? She said, she'll never let me. Well, don't tell her, or tell her, that's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Do you lie to your loved one? Do you not tell them the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I'm
Right.
not condoning lying, but for me, that's what I did because it was survival. I was
Yeah.
desperate, and a desperate man will steal a loaf of bread to feed his family and
Mm-hmm.
risk going to jail. So desperate people do desperate things.
Absolutely. What did you do and how did it happen that you guys rekindled your love? Because at this point, like you had hit a point where you're ready
Yeah.
to leave and it was frustrating. How did that happen?
Yeah, I didn't even know if I was in love anymore. I knew I loved her,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have a daughter who was going through a lot of rough stuff, relationships, and when she was 16, 17, 18. And I kept asking myself, do I love this kid anymore? This kid drives me crazy.
I've said that a lot. Yeah.
So someone said, yes, you love her. You just don't like her right now. I says,
Yeah.
okay, that could work. So yeah, I loved my wife, but there was a period of time that I did not like her at all. You know, I wouldn't say I hated her. I just hated her behavior. I hated what she was doing. I hated how she was treating me. I didn't like her. I wanted to be away from her. So, but you'd be surprised. That song, What a Difference a Day Makes,
Mm-hmm.
24 little hours. Well, yeah, 48 hours away on a plane with supportive friends who you hadn't seen. It's like a Michelob commercial. Here's the good friends, tonight is kind of special. And, I came back just in such a good mood and so jovial and so happy and so refreshed. my 2% battery that was
Mm-hmm.
flashing danger, Will Robinson, was 100%
Mm-hmm.
charged. And so I says, wow, that was a good decision. I don't
Yeah.
care how much she hated it or how much she complained or what wrath I have to get from her when I get back. It was worth it. And I would do it again. And I did do it again and again and again. And slowly, I think she realized, you know what, he's living his life and I'm miserable, because misery loves company, right? They want
Yes.
to make you miserable with them.
Yes.
And I just refused to let her bring me down. And so many, and this is true with 2-year-olds too, so many 2-year-olds are running the house and they snap their fingers. Oh yes, honey. And the parents are ragged because they're living their life around this 2-year-old who they've made the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that. And that 2-year-old is going to grow up to be a terrible, terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
And God help the person who ever marries that person, because they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be very self-centered and selfish. And so, parenting classes need to be part of the curriculum. you know.
Yeah. No kidding.
So
No kidding.
your question was, I
Falling
forget.
back in love.
Oh yeah. So I'm asking myself, really asking myself, saying, well, maybe I should leave her. I read. That's when the letter got written, and I could actually, for the first time in my life, I could never live without her. But now I could say, I could live without her. I could
Right.
be really happy without her, and so many spouses do leave their loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, some of them while they're even in the hospital. I met people in the
Wow.
support groups that are alone. I said, where's your husband? Oh, he left me when this happened, and he says, I didn't sign up for this, so I'm out of here. And more than you would want to think. Very few take their vows seriously and hang in there. Now, some of them, bless their heart, will separate, get a divorce, but then still continue to be the caregiver, the ex-spouse. And I don't understand that, but it happens. So I guess it must be some love there. Maybe they just can't get along with each other, knowing that they're married to each other. I don't know. What a
It
piece.
could be an issue with sexuality too.
Yeah, maybe they
I
just
mean,
want to
I don't
sleep with each
know.
other.
I think sometimes divorce in our mind gives us that separation that we need to not feel guilty about living our own life.
Yeah, and now they have the independence, the financial
Right.
independence. You can't tell me what to do anymore. I can go
Yeah.
see who I want to see. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it too. I'm not condoning it, but I
Yeah,
understand that there's a shift in mentality when you're no longer married to this person. You don't have to live with them, but you love them and want
yeah,
to take care of them and be there.
yeah, yeah,
And
and that happens a lot.
I don't know that there's a right way or a wrong way to do it. I think leaving the person because it's not what you signed up for is horrid.
Yeah,
But at the same
but
time,
this is what people are doing. For
yeah,
whatever reason, this is what they're doing. They're that desperate, and I was almost there. I was considering it.
yeah,
I was weighing the options. What are your options? And
yeah.
some of your friends are telling you, "Hey, man, you don't deserve this." Blah, blah, blah. And but you've got to weigh your own values and morals and faith. And
Mm-hmm.
so I couldn't do it. That's why I just put the letter away and went on. And then thank God it was a support group that gave me hope
Yeah.
that, it doesn't, there can be option 3, door number 3 that you hadn't considered. And so that's what I did. And so we might have been, we did go to counseling too, I remember, because we were arguing and yelling at each other all the time. We were going to church, and the pastor, tried to counsel us, and he says, "Wow, you guys just really need to come together. You need to decide if you even want to be married together." And I was shocked to hear him to say that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, every relationship, boyfriend girlfriend, goes through a phase where you have a fight and you break up. Everyone breaks up, and then that's a very beneficial part of the dating process, breaking up, because it tells each of the other person, well, I can live without them, I don't need them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can, but typically what happens is you start realizing, wow, and you start hearing all the criticisms they had about you, of why they broke up, and you said, well, I guess I am a little selfish. Well, I guess I do that. I guess I do. I guess I don't. I guess I do. And then you start saying, gosh, I'm so lonely. I'm so miserable. I can't sleep at night. I can't live without this person. And so you change your ways and you go back. And kind of that's where we were when he says, well, maybe you need to just, separate. and it's hard to hear a pastor say that, because pastors
Yeah.
are supposed to bring marriages together and not separate. But it made us, again, it was a wake up call saying, God, do we really want to do that? You know, we were married for so long. We were so happy. Is a stroke really going to cause our marriage to die? We thought nothing could, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, or, you know, for better or worse. You know, those were the vows. And so I think we both tried a little harder to
Yeah.
tolerate each other. So as she, well, that you got to
That's
start
where it
with
starts. Yeah.
tolerating. You
I know.
start
I
with,
know.
if you can tolerate something, you know, you're halfway there.
I'm not disagreeing.
And then you can learn to love, you know, like
Right.
I'm still tolerating charades and Pictionary. And I'm trying to love the game, you know, because a lot of people love it. Why can't I, you know? But it
Right.
hasn't happened yet. Jigsaw puzzles, all that stuff. But I forget. I lost my
So
train.
did she communicate with you when the pastor said that? I mean, I'm guessing that it wasn't just a one-way street. So maybe that's
Yeah, she
incorrect.
does communicate, and you know, it's on a very basic level, but
Right.
she'll pat her heart like this, say,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
oh, you know, oh. So that's like, yeah, I'll give in, or I'll do something, you know, or whatever. And so
Yeah.
we tried, but like I said before, when I was having all the fun and she wasn't, you know, I moved her into she's an interior decorator, right? And her
Right.
house was like the Taj Mahal, and so we moved to this track home that's half the size, and everything's white. It was new. Everything's white, no window dressing. And she lived in that house for a year, just staring at the white walls, which I know she hates. You
Right.
know,
Right.
the walls have to have wallpaper and fancy valances and, you know, all this stuff. And so finally, I knew she was coming around when she started. First of all, she asked the boy who lived next door, the parents, the boy's parents, no, the parents' boy, if he knew how to paint. And he said yes. And so she hired him to paint the inside of the house these different colors. I said, oh, something's up, because I knew she was like back. And then she wanted to have a dinner party, because she was put on all these dinner parties because she's a gourmet cook.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, really, you want to? Can you still do that? Can you still, you know, spend 5 days at the supermarket preparing all? Yes, I can do it. And she did it. You know, I made a video of Charlene, the amazing Charlene, and how, you know, just all of this stuff. And so she was doing dinner parties. She was doing decorating. She was just doing. She was back. Charlene was back. You know, with one arm and one leg tied behind her back. You know, it's like the
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman part. I can do it, and I can do it with one arm tied behind my back. And she was doing more than most normal people could do, and that was her
Right.
legacy. That was what people were amazed. They would come over for dinner and say, "Oh my God, I can't do half of what you're doing, and look at you, and well, what am I complaining about?" So she was
Mm-hmm.
encouraging people, not realizing it, poo-pooing it when I tell her, "Oh, you're such an encouragement." You know.
Right.
So I don't know if that's false humility or she really believes it. I think she really believes it, because she just, you know, well, I can't talk, I can't do this. It took me forever to get her to come on television with me. You know, she
Oh.
said, no, I can't. And so finally, she came on the first show in Palm Springs, and like she was amazing. You know, she was the hit of the show. And then I got her to come on another one in Fresno, and then on a different station in Palm Springs, she came on again, just the local shows. She won't go to the faraway ones. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get her to go to Des Moines, Iowa, and she goes, "I'm not going to Des Moines, Iowa. There's nothing there." And yet, fate shows you how it is. I was on the plane, and there were all these interesting looking people, and they were, you know, like singing and stuff, and I says, well, "Who are you guys?" And they said, "Oh, we are the New York City Ballet, and we are
Oh.
going to perform at the Iowa State University." And I said, "Oh, wow." And I didn't think anything of it. So I get to my hotel, and they give me a newspaper, front page news, New York City Ballet to open it. I says, "Oh, wow." And so I had to drive 30 minutes if I wanted to see him from where I was. And I says, "I'm going to do it. When am I going to get to see the New York City Ballet?" Right.
Yeah.
And so I call her up, and I says, "Guess where I'm going to?" And she was so jealous. And I says, well, honey, you could have come with me to Des Moines, Iowa, but you chose not to. She didn't want me to go. I says, I'm sorry, I'm going. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, if I can't go, you're not going, you know, that kind of thing. So I
I've
think she
heard,
just realized, she
go,
just
go.
realized that I'm not going to wallow in my self-pity anymore. She has a relationship with God, and she'll go like this, you know, I spoke with God. God told me it's all right. And just, you know, go on. I still love you. I'm still here. And so she just started acting like she did before all this happened. And she has a smile on her face and joy in her heart most of the time now. And that's even more of an encouragement to people and to me.
Oh, absolutely. And it took you saying, nope, I'm not going to stay here with you
Tough,
in this.
tough love, right?
Tough love. Yeah. I've heard a lot of things. So, I mean, one is finding support, and the other is finding things that you love and doing them and being happy yourself, which kind of spills out on. So,
Yeah.
when people come to you, what are their top grievances or issues or struggles? What's the number one thing that you talk to people about?
Well, there's 5 things that a lot of people come to me about. 3, really. I'll give you the top 3.
Okay.
In my opinion, you can edit that cough out. In my opinion, if they could not do these 3 things, then they won't be one of the 30% that die, or even more that get sicker. And the first one is, and we discussed this a little, put your needs first. It's okay to be a little selfish. I did a TED talk on TEDx and at Harvard, and it was caregivers can be, it's okay. What does it say? It's okay for caregivers to be selfish. And selfish is not a dirty word, you know.
Mhm.
I wanted to call my book, the one that says It's My Life Too, The Selfish Caregiver. They published it. No, you can't do that. Selfish is a negative word. No one buy it, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, TEDx embraced it. They says, no, we like that. There's no self-promotion. I can't promote me. I can't promote everything I've done, where I've been, where I've spoken. Can't promote my gas station. We just want an idea worth spreading. And we love the hook that caregivers must be selfish in order to survive. So that kind of made me think, okay, well, maybe selfish isn't a dirty word. Maybe I can talk about caregivers being selfish, because it's either be selfish or die. And it's not that I'm teaching caregivers to be selfish. It's just that they are so on the opposite end of the pendulum. They are selfless. They're too selfless. So it's a sin to be too selfless, I think, and it's a sin to be too selfish. And everyone needs balance. But a caregiver who's being too selfless needs to be very selfish just to move that pendulum enough to where it's balanced. Because, you know, a selfless person, no matter how hard they try to be selfish, they're not going to go very far.
Right.
But we want them to just come halfway. Meet me halfway. And so that's the deal about that. So I would tell caregivers that you have to put your needs first. Even the Bible says, love others as you love yourself. And if you don't take care of yourself, it means you're not loving yourself. You're not valuing
Mhm.
yourself. My life is not worth as much as my mother's life or my sister's life or my wife's life. Well, that's not biblical, you know. You have to love you, or you don't know how to love others. You can't love your wife if you don't even love yourself. And many marriages have failed simply because the husband or the wife had a low self-image, low self-worth, and even though the other spouse loved them, they didn't know how to love back. So
Right.
that's it. Put your needs first. And again, the analogy of the airlines and the oxygen mask. The second biggest mistake caregivers make is they don't know how to ask for help. Now, you
Mm.
see, everyone has one of these little black things. It's called a cell phone. And you turn it on, you punch in your number, and you talk. Hello, Mom? I need
Yes.
help. That was driving me crazy. You know, call your brother, call your sister, call your wife's husband, call anybody to get
Yeah.
over that silly notion. If you can't do this all by yourself, that you're a failure as a caregiver. That attitude will kill you. Nobody can
Right.
do it themselves. Third biggest mistake is the guilt. Everybody allows people to guilt them, especially their loved one. Well, you're not doing it good enough, or you're not doing enough. or, you don't do it like so-and-so does it. Well, you know what? This is where boundaries comes in. If
Yes.
people are offending you, guess what? It's your fault. If your loved one is doing things that irk you, it's your fault because you never put a boundary down and told them what would happen if they crossed that boundary, what the consequences would be.
Yep.
So, for example, okay, I'm not getting any sleep every night. You keep waking me up in the middle of the night because you want water. You're going to have water before you go to sleep, or when you, maybe water's a bad example because you don't want them to pee in the middle of the night, but whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
I am available from these times to that time, and I am not available from this time to that time. I will be napping. It'll be me time. I'll be Calgon, take me away, or whatever
Exactly.
it is, and like a 2-year-old, they will test that.
Yep.
And then you can either give them one warning and say, if this happens again, this will be the consequences. I told you, and I'm serious. And then you have to actually enforce it. Do what
Yeah.
you said you were going to do. Don't be like the parent who keeps saying, wait till your father gets home and nothing ever happens. So there are people who are just naturally good at dispensing undeserved guilt. And I think of that show about a caregiver caring for his elderly father in the junk business. It was called Sanford and Son.
Oh
Fred
my gosh.
Sanford was notorious for guilting his son Lamont into doing all sorts of cockamamie harebrained schemes that was not in Lamont's best interest. It went something like this. Oh, it's the big one. No,
Yep.
son, really, it's the big one. Elizabeth, I'm coming to meet you, honey. It's the big one. And Lamont would fall for that con every single time, and caregivers are the same way.
Yeah.
It's like being handcuffed to your loved one for the rest of your life, a prisoner in caregiver prison with no possibility of parole. And that kind of guilt will kill you. You get rid of those three things, you've just improved your odds of survival by a lot.
Dave, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. I had no idea you'd make me laugh as much as you did, but I'm very happy about that.
No problem. Caregiver Dave, we've got 3
Caregiver
free
Dave.
gifts for anyone who goes there.
All right. Excellent.
And
Thank you so much.
thanks for having me on.